Hey guys, it's Carrie here. Sorry it's been such a long time since I've checked in. I've had trouble finding internet out here in North Dakota. My host family is doesn't have Wi-Fi. So I'm doing two lectures today since I missed last week's, and I sincerely apologize for that. Good golly. But today what we're going to mostly be talking about is the directing process. And what I mean by that is the pre-production process. We're also going to go over a little bit of history and some of the first steps you should be taking as a director when you have a script. So let's get to it, shall we? So let's go over just a brief history of directing really fast, okay? So directing didn't really exist when theater first came into being, right? So we start in Greece when we talk about Western theater. African and Asian theater is a whole nother concept. But when we talk about our Western theater that you and I are most familiar with, right? We're in Greece. When the big amphitheaters are being built, the kind of plays we're doing are mostly comedies. Only men are acting, and only men are playwrights. And the playwrights at the time kind of acted as the director. They blocked everything. They came up with the ideas, and the actors were also a big part of the directing and the blocking. When Shakespeare came around, again, still only men on stage. He builds the globe, so he creates more of a thrust type space. But once again, the playwright still is kind of acting as the director, the one who is blocking everything. And there are still no lights. The sets are incredibly minimal. In the script, it'll tell you, oh my gosh, this is where we are. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene, right? There's no set to tell you where you are. It's all in the text. So it's really a playwright's world, and a playwright is mostly the director, okay? Until we come around to the Duke of Saxe-Meiningen again, this handsome devil over here. I mean, just look at that beard. So he comes around in the Victorian period, and the Duke is an opera director, and what he starts to see is these incredible plays and these incredible operas that just have absolutely no unification. The costume designer is doing one thing, the set designer is doing another, while the actor on stage is doing their own thing. We're also in a diva or star system where, let's say, I don't know, we'll call her Rachel, is like a very famous actor. Because Rachel is a very famous actor, she picks her costumes, she picks what her set looks like, she picks everything. And there's absolutely no unifying front at all. And there is no director, the star system. The star is the one who makes those decisions until the Duke comes around, who is saying, the Duke comes around and says, we really need one cook in the kitchen, someone to make all these big decisions, to bring the costumes and the directing all under one roof. And he's most famous for like these giant crowd scenes that were just beautifully blocked and staged. And when people came to see it, they were like, oh my God, this is incredible, because everyone is under one single voice and one single vision. And it's not just like 30 actors on stage making it up. He completely changed the game. He also had giant casts, anywhere from 100 to 200 people on stage at once doing these huge crowd scenes. His opera Romeo and Juliet is one of the most famous documented operas of all time. His staging of it, with the Capulets and Montagues in the opening scene fighting and killing each other, and it was staged beautifully and wasn't made up and was incredibly realistic. And it was the first time people were like, wow, maybe a director's not such a bad idea. Fast forward like 10 or so years, we get this dude right here named Richard Wagner. Yes, he is German. He comes up with this word, Gesamtkunstwerk. And what that means is pretty much a directorial concept. One single theme, idea, metaphor, or image that encompasses the entire production. And it was after this, really after Richard Wagner, that everyone was like, yes, directors are needed. And thus the director was born. So let's talk about what the role of the modern director is today, okay? So the biggest one is they interpret the play. Okay, a lot of people say they fulfill the playwright's interpretation. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of the time, different directors have different perspectives or interpretations of a play, of a certain playwright's intent, and we've all seen those plays where a director will completely, shit all over a playwright's intent, for lack of a better word. If the playwright wanted one thing, a director can come in and completely change it. It is so easy to manipulate words and to manipulate a playwright's original intent. A great example is Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew, which was intended to be a comedy. And more often than not nowadays, it is performed as a tragedy. He intended it to be a funny play about a woman who is crazy and very difficult to work with, who won't be with a husband, and here comes a man who tames her, and it's a very funny play. And nowadays, I more often see it as a woman who is forced to be quiet and meek and do what her husband tells her to do, and all of a sudden it's a tragedy. And that's really just based on how a director interprets the plays, casts, blocks, etc. So yes, the first and foremost role of the director is to interpret the play, to read, to analyze, and to decide upon a unifying theme or concept. And we'll get to that a little bit later. Their second one is always to rehearse. And a lot of people are like, oh, a director is there to provide a safe space for the actors. I cry bull. A director is there to block the actors. Okay, a really good director knows how to block efficiently and well, and to use ideas from actors, but to overall give them a framework where actors can have more creativity and really do their job, which is to be emotionally invested in the story. Directors are there to create stage pictures for the audience. First and foremost, and I'll wrap that up at the end too, the director is not there for the actors. The director is first and foremost there for the audience, and to bring all the unifying pieces together. The set, the costumes, the actors, the props, the music. The director is the one who puts them all under one roof. And their ultimate job is to be a storyteller. Through the use of actors, set, text, costume, and movement, tell a compelling, interesting, and clear story. That is your job as a director. Yeah? It is not to be the actor's cheerleader. It is not to be the best friends with the actors. It is not to provide a safe space for the actors. Your job is to tell a compelling story. That is your job. Now let's begin with the first step. The first stage of the directing process is what we call like pre-production. Most people don't know this, but actors' jobs do not start until auditions. They got nothing to do until auditions. Directors' jobs start months in advance. You guys are in it right now. You're trying to pick a play. Yeah, often I just get hired to direct a play. I'll be like, well, just this year, hey, Carrie, can you come direct Peter Pan? Hey, Carrie, can you come direct this? Hey, Carrie, can you come direct Company? And I say yes or no, or blah, 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 here's what I want, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, first step in the process, pre-production. Now I've got my play. It's in my hands, okay? What is the first thing I do after I have, let's say, Peter Pan in my hands? The process of analysis of the script. The first thing I do, if you guys got that book by Katie Mitchell, her whole first chapter is called Facts and Questions. What you're going to do is you're going to open your play and you're going to look for given circumstances. What is the playwright telling me? Okay? What is a fact? Peter Pan is not from London. Wendy is from London. Wendy has two brothers, John and Michael. Mr. and Mrs. Darling are their parents. They have a dog named Nana. The first act of the play takes place in a nursery. Wendy does not want to grow up. Those are all facts given to me by the playwright. Those are all given circumstances. Now, what are imaginary circumstances, you might ask? They are answers to these questions. What might be some questions I have about Peter Pan? We don't really know exactly who Peter Pan's parents are. That's my first question. He says he fell out of his pram and then Tinkerbell took him to Neverland. What exactly is Neverland? Where is Neverland? When did Neverland start existing? Tinkerbell we know is a fairy. How big is Tinkerbell? When did Tinkerbell and Peter become such good friends? When did Peter Pan become the leader of the Lost Boys? When did Peter Pan start listening at Wendy's window? Do Mr. and Mrs. Darling know that Peter Pan is out there? Does Wendy think Peter Pan is real? Those are all just like examples of questions. And you need to answer them either with your cast or by yourself as a director. Yeah, what are the answers? And those are what we call imaginary circumstances. So let's think back to like as an actor. some of the roles you all have played. We're going to use Judy as an example, right? Because she's playing Miss Hannigan right now, and she's already played Miss Hannigan. So what do we know about Miss Hannigan? We know she is she works at an orphanage. We don't know how long she's been there. That would be a question. How long has Miss Hannigan worked at the orphanage? As Hannigan, I would need to answer that question. I've been here for 25 years. I've been here for 30 years. Whatever. Usually you want to pick the strongest choice. You could say I've been there for 2 years, but is that as strong of a choice as I've been there for 25 years? Yeah, you want to pick the stronger of the choice. What else is known about Hannigan? She hates Annie. Why does she hate Annie so much? That's not really answered in the text. I'd want to answer that. Something that we know that she has a brother named Rooster. Is he older or younger? I would want to decide that. How poor is Miss Hannigan? What was her childhood like? Why is she so mean? Why does she hate little girls? Stuff like that. Yeah, what's given and what's imaginary? What do I need to answer? Make a huge list. So here's an example of Wizard of Oz, just a really simple one, but like even just from the first page, we know Dorothy is from Kansas. She lives on a farm. She has an aunt and uncle, and she has a dog. Write this down. It isn't enough to just make a mental list in your head. You need to pull out a notebook and write all of it down. Some questions I have just from the first page. What happened to our parents? Why is she not in school? Has she run away before? I don't know. Just some things to think about just from the first page, right? And some things you would want to talk to your cast about. Why do you do this? What do you think happened here? What is your backstory, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions about facts and questions, given circumstances and imaginary circumstances. This is the first step you take as a director in terms of your pre-production and your analysis, okay? From there, we want to determine your style. Now, for this one act, I really pushed you all to do realism because it's the easiest. It's not necessarily the easiest. That's not true. It's the easiest for us to wrap our minds around. It's the one that's most accessible, and it's the one that's like the best for beginning actors. But there are so many different styles. Absurdism, modernism, expressionism, Dadaism, futurism, postmodernism, dramas, comedies, all that kind of stuff, okay? So determine your style. Most of you will land in realism. If you're not sure, ask me, and I can go through what all these other isms mean. But I really asked you guys to do American realism, okay? That means realism really does just reflect real life, yeah? And those are sometimes the easiest ones to do. The next thing we're going to talk about is Freytag's pyramid. And I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try to draw for you just with my mouse right now. I wish it was a different color. What Freytag's pyramid looks like. The next thing you want to do though is analyze your story. Okay? What the beginning is what we call the introduction. Okay? And Freytag's pyramid is literally just a pyramid. And I'll send you guys a picture of it too, but I just kind of wanted to draw it with this mouse to give you guys an idea. We have an introduction. Let's do the three little pigs, for example, okay? Pick one. I'm pick one. I'm pick two. I'm pick three. We want to leave home and build houses. That's what we call the inciting incident, the moment where everything changes, where something happens and the play is launched. We want to go leave home and build houses. What we have next is called the rising action, okay? Rising action is when the tension builds. Okay, first thing would be first little pig builds it out of straw, big bad wolf blows it down. Second rising action would be second pig builds it out of sticks, big bad wolf blows it down. Third rising action would be brick, the big bad wolf can't blow it down. Then we have what's called the climax, which is where your inciting incident or your major dramatic question is answered. Something like, who will win, the big wolf or the three little pigs? Climax is the big bad wolf falls into a pot. Falling action is he runs away or is killed, depending on the version you're doing, and the three little pigs live happily ever after. You want to analyze your story. Where is your inciting incident? Where is your climax? Those two moments are the most important thing. Yeah? Some other character analysis you want to take into consideration. I'm going to jump over here. Who is my protagonist? Protagonist doesn't mean the good guy or the bad guy. It means who is my lead character, who is the character the audience is following, or how I like to put it, who has the greatest want or need. I just directed Company. Super easy. My protagonist is Bobby, right? Peter Pan. My protagonist is Peter Pan. Yeah, he has the greatest want and the greatest journey. Who is their antagonist? It's the person who is keeping them from their objective. Captain Hook. Bobby, I would argue he is his own antagonist. Marriage is his antagonist. The thing that's in his way, right? What are their character arcs and journeys? And map that out. Peter Pan starts as a little boy. Inciting incident, he meets with Captain Hook. He meets Wendy. He meets Captain Hook. Wendy gets captured, and the climax is Peter wins and decides to stay in Neverland. That's really the climax, that Peter decides to stay in Neverland, whereas Wendy goes home. Yeah. And mapping out that character arc and that journey. Who are they? Peter Pan is a young boy, probably 10 to 12. Where is he from? Neverland. He also visits London. How old is he? We just answered that. 12. What is his occupation? To be a boy. You know, occupation affects the way a character walks, the way they carry themselves, the way they talk, and what is his or her relationship to other characters. He is friends with everybody. Wendy kind of has a thing for him, but he doesn't have a thing for Wendy. He hates Captain Hook, but he also loves the fight with him. He's closest to Tinkerbell. Stuff like that. You would want to write that all down. More for pre-production. After analysis comes concept and every themes. What I hate about this word concept, like this is my directorial concept. Like it's like this big thing that really doesn't mean that much, okay? A directorial concept is just this, guys. It's your version of the play in one sentence. If you could put your version of the play and just wrap it in one sentence, what would that be? Okay, and you might be like, why do I have to do that? It's mostly for your designers and for you to continually check back in. Is that the play I'm blocking? Is that the play I'm working on? So I just wrote one up really quick and I want you guys to kind of just guess in your head what play you think this is. Two children must navigate the pressures of leaving their beautiful, fantastical, and bright childhood in order to come of age in a dark, layered, and cruel reality, only to decide they would rather die for their fantasy than live in the reality their parents have created. What play do you think that is? It's Romeo and Juliet. This is what Romeo and Juliet means for me. Now let's talk about some money words here. Two children. I don't think Romeo and Juliet are adults, as they are often cast as like 20-some-odd-year-olds. I'm like, no, they're two kids. That affects who I cast, but that also affects how I want my actors to play those roles. Childlike, innocent, energetic, passionate, horny. That's what that says. Must navigate, aka they've never done this before. I want them swimming a little, searching, swiping. They don't know how to do it. The pressures, they're feeling the pressure of leaving a beautiful, fantastical, and bright childhood. AKA, I want the first half to be beautiful, bright, fantasy-like, and the second half to be dark, layered, and cruel. Parents are the antagonist. Yeah? The reason I love doing my concept this way is I just give that sentence to my designers, and they know exactly what I'm looking for. Does that make sense? It's also something that as I stage the play, if I'm like, is that the right way? Is that the way I want that character to be portrayed? Is that what I want my audience to see? All I have to do is go back and check in with my concept. And I go, yeah, that does look childlike. Or no, that looks a little too serious for the first half. Or that doesn't look too fantastical for the first half. And it's a great roadmap to kind of keep you on point. Is this the version of the play that you want to do? You guys will hear me say this a lot too. Something that's really important as a director and just as an artist in general, and we actually have a real problem with it in our community, is that a concept is your version of the play. It's not someone else's. Okay? What I mean by that is, remind me tomorrow. What I mean by that is we have a real problem in our community of people stealing other people's concepts or stealing other people's choreography or taking someone else's version and just restaging it. Your job as a director is not to restage someone else's version of the play. That's just like stealing, and it's lazy, and our community deserves better. Yeah? And it's just like not as fun. Let's be honest. When you're in the director's seat, it's like your opportunity to tell your twist, your take, your version of the story. Why would you ever shortchange yourself to restage someone else's perspective? Yeah? Just kind of keep that in mind. That doesn't mean you have to do anything crazy. That doesn't mean you have to like set it on Mars. But it does mean that you have to find something in the play that stirs you, that gets you passionate. A great example for me is like Annie, okay? So like Annie is like, oh my gosh, I've been at it a million times, and directing it 2 years ago for cast, I was like, what does this play mean to me? What does this play stir in me? And it really is Annie, right? That everywhere she goes, she brings a pop of life to people who are living in the darkest, most depressing era of American history. And so what we really tried to do was show that anywhere Annie went, things just got a little bit brighter. That's it. That's all I did. Other changes I made was we really bumped up the depression. We didn't try to like make it musical theater-y, but we really wanted to show that the depression was a really terrible time. I didn't try to like diffuse that Hannigan and Rooster were trying to kill a child. I really stylistically just tried to bring some new images to Annie that weren't necessarily traditional. Her hair was a little bit different. Hooverville looked a little bit different. NYC looked a little bit different. Like, what about the play do I find interesting, and how can I bring that to light, right? Anyway, rant over, off the soapbox. Let's move on. Themes or money words, okay? So this is especially good when you're talking to designers, but it's also good for you, even in like this, since you are your own designer, to bring up the kind of play, what you want it to look like. Describe the plot of your play in one sentence. 2 children from 2 households who hate each other try to create a life of love that cannot survive. And as you're blocking and as you're reading, that's the story to you. Make sure that's what you're seeing. Some themes that come to mind for Romeo and Juliet: hate, passion, love, youth, family, sacrifice. Money words. What I mean by that are words I would share with my actors and my designers. Loss, passion, fiery. As a designer, I can take that and run with it. Death, there's a sexiness to it, right? Give them all those money words. That just helps them have creative just be creative, and it helps your actors to be creative. Oh, you want passion? Oh, you want something fiery or sexy? I can play that. Yeah. The next step you guys are going to do, so let's say we've now picked our plays. Yay! For beginning directors, nothing is more important than a good ground plan. Chloe is very good at doing ground plans now. She's taken my class, it can make or break your scene, okay? There are 2 major considerations to guide a director in mapping out a ground plan: traffic patterns and acting areas. You want space and you want room, but you also want places and things for your actors to do. Obstacles are your friends. Just having a giant empty stage helps no one. I always put like a giant table or like ottoman in the middle of my ground plans because it provides interesting movement for your actors. Beds are like the bane of my existence because you can't just walk around a bed. Beds are up against a wall, and it just really limits the amount of movement you can do because you can go from one side of the bed and then to the other, and that's it. Whereas if you've got a table, you can go around it, you can cross behind it, you can cross in front of it, you can lean over it, you can like sit at it. It like provides a lot more freedom for you. Actors also need at least 5 places to sit. You want to give yourself a lot of options for stage pictures, which we'll get to later, okay? Exits and entrances. Where are we? Where are we coming from? Where are we going? What can happen in this room needs to happen. So props and set dressing are very important. I did Some Girls when I was in graduate school, and it takes place in a hotel room. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And it's a 2-hour play that takes place in a hotel room. I was like, we need to have food in there. I want an ice bucket in there. I want a notebook. I want chairs and a table. I want a TV. Man, I came up with everything to go in that room, because if 2 hours of them just talking, oh, for the love of God, anything that can happen needs to happen. Something I say all the time to my directors is, this is not about the day when nothing happened. We are not watching a real life play that is boring. Stuff needs to happen. And in order for that, you need to provide your actors with a ground plan that provides dynamic movement, not just crossing from stage left to stage right again. How can you give them places to go? A window, a vanity, something, okay? Keep going back to your facts. Where are we? What is the time period? What time of day is it? What takes place? What do these people do for a living? What can be in the room? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? Answer all those questions and then put them on stage. A good actor knows how to work a prop. Put it there for them. Here's an example of what I think is a really good ground plan. Do you guys see how much is on stage here? And the audience is probably, it looks like in a 3/4 thrust is what it looks like. 1, 2, 3. But there's this lovely table. We can walk around it. Looks like we can cross up stage to whatever this is and cross over here to here. There's one bed here. Looks like there's a couchy thing over here. A chair, another chair, a door to enter. Like, oh, this is a great ground plan. Do you know what I mean? And 2 chairs to sit at the table. So much for my actors to do. Yeah, we had 3 plays this year that were realism. Steel Magnolias takes place in a hair salon. Holy shiz. It's like, wow, yes, Dylan, put magazines in there, hair things. What can they be doing all day? Raisin in the Sun was another one. It took place in a kitchen. Oh my gosh, what can be in there? Make sure it's all in there, and make sure they've got something to walk around and behind and all that jazz. Pre-rehearsal, style, theme, color, etc. This is something that you guys want to take into consideration as you pick your pieces, but also what color can convey to an audience, and style and shape. Something we'll learn about later is there are like 5 elements of design: shape, form. It's like shape. What is it? Shape, form, texture, color, and there's like another one. All of these give a very specific story to an audience. The pictures I picked here were two shows I directed this year that could not have been more different: Company and Peter Pan. Let's really quick just notice some things about Peter Pan. I see saturated color. I see a lot of detail work in the costumes and in the set. I see a ton of texture. I see silly props that are incredibly detailed. I see bright colors. I see kind of intricate, complex textures. Right? What does that tell me? This is a beautiful, fantastical world. This is obviously Neverland, right? Whereas, look at Company. What's the first thing I notice, especially in these 2 pictures? It's almost black and white. There are very little texture, sharp shapes. This like hard circle right here. Bobby's in one color here and one color here. Even this texture up here is still like a bunch of little circles, right? Shaped by, it looks like buildings, sharp buildings that are falling on him. This is obviously a much darker, more depressing play. Look, this is even the same actor, David Wooten here and David Wooten here. Look how different his physicality is versus here, right? This play was obviously more realistic, a lot darker. My version of Company, anyway. This was a lot more fun, caricature, yada, yada, yada. Think about that. If you could put a color to your play, what would it be? If you could put a theme, what would it be? Your final image of your play, what do you want it to look like? I will say, both of these pictures, even before I started to work on started rehearsal, this is exactly what I wanted my Peter Pan to look like in my head. This was exactly what I wanted Company to look like in my head. Yeah? You want to aim for that. Pre-rehearsal. The third and final stage of pre-rehearsal or pre-production is your prompt book. That is your script, your Bible. Okay? And you should spend a ton of time on that prompt book. It will make rehearsal so much more efficient. It will contain your reflections, your facts, your questions, your pre-blocking, which we'll talk about here in a second. You will put in there any ideas you have about certain characters, important moments, how you want to break down a scene. Your prop book is incredibly important, okay? So let's talk about pre-blocking. I can't block until I know who my characters are. And some of you might, there are two directors, some who pre-block and some who don't. I teach my directors to pre-block, okay? Because nobody wants a director coming in who's unprepared. You should be freakishly prepared, especially in community theater. You don't have trained actors. You've got newbies who've never done this before, and they will be more effective if you can give them concrete blocking, okay? And I will probably expect that from you guys, okay? You need to pre-block a play, placing notations of movement, entrances, props, exits, and you can put them in the margin of your prompt book or on a separate notebook. Blocking is the decision-making process of arranging action on stage. What is the action? What is happening? You need to stage exactly what is happening. If your play is about two lovers who blah, 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 you need to stage that. Pre-blocking is the decision-making process done by the director before the actors arrive, okay? Now, to block, you need to analyze for certain things in your text. Now, this is mostly actor analysis, but as a community theater director, working with non-professional actors, you guys really need to be doing this yourself. Analyzing for events. An event is anytime a character enters or exits, or anytime a character's objective changes. So a good example of an objective, and I'll skip down to objective. What does a character want? Here's an example. Let's say it's Stefan's birthday, and we're all in the room together, and I'm like, oh my God, guys, it's Stefan's birthday. My objective, let's say for this play or this exercise, is to throw Stefan a surprise birthday party. That is my initial objective, okay? But in order to do that, I got to get Stefan out of the room, okay? So let's say what we call my super objective is to throw Stefan a surprise birthday party. But my initial objective is to get Stefan out of the room. So that's an event, okay? My first tactic to get Stefan out of the room. What am I going to do to get him out of the room? I might say, oh, Stefan, I left my coat in the lobby. Could you please go get it? To lie, to bribe, to beg, whatever. It doesn't work. He goes, well, I really don't want to go get it, Carrie. And I'm like, oh God, how else do I get him out of the room? Now there's a beat, a shift in character. I have to think of another tactic. Oh my God, Stefan, our order from Jimmy John's came in. Can you go pick it up? If he's hungry, do you think he's hungry? That's why I did that. Ah, it doesn't work. He's not hungry. Shite, 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 shite. What is another tactic? And usually each tactic, there's another beat shift, should get a little bit, if I really need to get him out of the room, I'm going to try a really crazy tactic. Like, oh my God, Stefan, I just got a phone call. Let's say, oh my God, one of your students at Donahoe just got really sick and they're asking for you. Now that's a really intense tactic, but I bet it works. Knowing Stefan, I bet he'd be like, oh my God, guys, I gotta go. It's really important I go help that student. All of a sudden, he's out of the room. Carrie just achieved her objective, okay? Once I achieve an objective, my next objective is to convince Daryl to bake the birthday cake. Therefore, an event happens. That is an event, a change, an objective. Yeah? Those are important, and you need to clearly lay those out for an audience. Anytime you have an event, a beat shift, an objective change, a tactic shift, you need to stage those. Tactic shifts are easy, right? When we're thinking from one tactic to another, we physicalize like rubbing our chin. We change direction. We sit down. We pause for a moment. Those can all show tactic shifts. Directors show tactic shifts, objective shifts, beats and events through blocking, okay? Something else to help is to title your scene. Let's say that one is just like, Carrie throws Stefan a surprise birthday party. Great. I always like to title my scene so I can go back and go, is that what I actually staged? Is that what the audience saw? Always ask, what is this scene about? A girl throws a surprise birthday party for her friend. Perfect. Make it so simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Okay, Annie. For Annie, let's say the first scene would be the first scene of that show. I would probably title, a young girl tries to escape from her orphanage. That's it. That's all I would title it. And make sure that that is clearly being staged for an audience. Is it clear to an audience? We're about to wrap up. I know this has been a long lecture, you guys. You're rock stars. It's because I'm putting 2 into 1, okay? Stage pictures are very important in conveying that to an audience. A play is a series of pictures. Some last only a second and some last a minute, but each picture is purposeful, pleasing to the eye, and communicates the story. Okay, it establishes focus. We are not film. I can't just zero in on someone's face, which means I have to create pictures where we see Annie's face at crucial moments, where we see Hannigan's face when there's an event. When there's an important shift, I got to make sure my audience is looking at the right person to see that change in character, to see that shift. Does that make sense, you guys? We compose each picture carefully, then create another one. What the audience sees, usually without realizing it, is a continuous cycle of composition, transition, composition, and transition. Without this action, the stage pictures and the production itself would be not only uninteresting, but confusing. I should be able to close off my ears and understand a story and understand a play by the pictures that you create. This person is doing this. Then this person hates this person. How do I show this? Then this person feels the need to blah, 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 blah. How are you showing that physically and in the way you compose pictures? Okay. Something I always do, and this is necessarily not in pre-production, but in rehearsal, I will close my eyes and see if I can hear the story, and then I'll close my ears and see if I can see the same story. Did you hear and see the same story? Did you? Or are you missing beats? We talk all the time about Game of Thrones is a great example, not to give anything away, but this last season did not do a good job of character growth, like logical character growth. We did not see enough from Daenerys. We did not see her transition from X, Y, and Z. Does that make sense? I'm trying to think of a play we did this year where you see a transition, and I can't even think of one. Or a play I did this year, Company. If any of you saw it, Bobby needs significant transitions from one scene to the next because at the end of the play he calls Kathy. Beginning of the play he didn't. So what are those little shifts that get him to call Kathy, and how can I effectively show those to an audience? Objectivity. You must see your play from the audience perspective. The biggest mistake early directors make is that they're like, I'm here for the actor. I'm here to make the actors feel comfortable, blah, 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 blah. You are not there for the actor. You are there to use the actor to make the actor's work expressive so that an audience can see a clear and concise story. Your first and foremost job is to stage the story for the audience. That is today's lecture. Yay! Sorry guys, I know it's a long one. Play selections are due May 30th. That's coming up. I've got 3 so far. I've got Stefan's, I've got Daryl's, and I've got Danny's. If you guys need help, please ask me. Otherwise, I hope to get everyone's submissions pretty soon. Performance dates will be sometime around July 12th and 13th. Lynn is still trying to figure out spacing issues, okay? She's on vacation now, but she said when she gets back, she'll look more into it, okay? We shall know more once I know what plays everyone is doing. If you guys have questions, please just ask, okay? And if anyone's curious, we are leaning more towards shorter scenes so that you all can go in one night as opposed to a bunch of longer scenes and it being spread over 2 nights. So if you haven't picked anything, try to find something that's like 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, okay? All right, guys, that's it from Carrie. Colton out.